When I think about banned books, the first thing that comes to mind is the First Amendment, because that's where freedom of speech and freedom of the press are enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. And I know that's because of my training as an attorney. I could be half asleep and somebody could say, freedom of speech. I'll be like, First Amendment. But when I really think about it, I realize that freedom of expression is really a universal ideal, not just an American ideal or right of U.S. citizens only. Now, when I consider banned books in the U.S. in particular, two that immediately spring to mind are Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. Both have been challenged, even in recent years, for their use of the N-word. And while I don't condone the use of any word as a term of derision or abuse, I think that those who would challenge those books for the inclusion of that term are really missing the point of what those books are about. Because to me, the inclusion of the N-word in Huck Finn or To Kill a Mockingbird is a reflection of the social injustice of the times and places in which those stories take place. And to ban those books for the inclusion of that term is to blind ourselves, or worse yet, to conceal from our children certain ugly historical realities, which we do at our peril, because to blind ourselves to ugly truths is a disservice to our society, because it impedes the evolution of our society. After all, you can't fix it if you don't even know it's broke. Now, I'd like to do a very short reading from Huckleberry Finn, which, as you know, is a story of Huck Finn and his friend Jim, who's a runaway slave. And at one point, Huck has to decide whether to turn Jim in. And he believes that he'll go to hell if he doesn't, because that's what he's been taught. He ultimately decides that he'd rather go to hell than betray his friend. But meanwhile, he says, I was a-trembling because I'd got to decide forever betwixt two things, and I knowed it. I studied a minute, sort of holding my breath, and then says to myself, all right then, I'll go to hell. That's one of my favorite parts.